Today on the channel, I'm going to tell you about my 2004 experience with I Love All Access in the reunion tour with Van Halen and Sammy Hagar. Hey everybody, Marty from the future here. Just wanted to let you know that I was having a little bit of trouble with my microphone in this video, but I didn't notice it till after I told my whole story, and I liked the content enough where I just decided to EQ the video and dress it up as best as I can. So please be patient with me. I'll correct those issues in future videos, and I hope you enjoy the content. I'll talk to you later, man. See ya.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you about my I Love All Access experience, where I got to go to meet Van Halen at a sound check in 2004 on the infamous and somewhat ill-fated reunion tour with Sammy Hagar back in 2004. I went to the second show, which was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was at Hershey Park. And you know, to cut to the chase, I really had a great time, and I'm super happy that I did it. But back in those days, meet and greet passes were kind of new. Bands really didn't do meet and greet passes online. The internet was still quite new, and bands and businesses were really trying to figure out how to capitalize on that sort of thing. And you know, concerts were still an additional form of revenue to support album and CD sales, so it wasn't really a big thing to market meet and greet passes. You know, you could go meet bands after concerts backstage if you were lucky, or meet them out by their tour bus, or hanging out outside the venue before the show, things like that. But that doesn't happen so much anymore because they know they can charge a lot of money these days, and it's quite a rip-off nowadays to do these meet and greet passes in some cases, right? So anyway, let me tell you about this. I Love All Access, which I think is a Live Nation company now, a VIP Live Nation division, but back then I Love All Access was kind of new, and I was a member, still am, but not active anymore. I was a member of VH Links, or the VHND, right? And I used to look at the forums and read Van Halen news daily, every day. I was obsessed. And I was always waiting for Sammy Hagar to come back in the band. I was always looking for news, you know, when's Sammy coming back, because Van Halen 3 was such a letdown, and then you know, we didn't get the Roth reunion before Van Halen 3 like we thought we were going to get, and I was so depressed that Sammy left, right? And I just couldn't get over it, so kept looking on the forums all the time. What's the news? What's the word on a reunion tour? And the Van Halen camp are notoriously quiet. They never tell you any news. They keep their mouths shut really tight, so any kind of breadcrumb or information you got was like a golden nugget, and then you never knew if it was true or not if you heard something, right? And chances are, if you heard stuff on the VHND, a lot of those guys were in on a lot of stuff, and you get some good info. Well, I found out early in 2004 that they were going to be doing I think it was early 2004, that they were going to reunite with Sammy Hagar, and you know, they released the Best of Both Worlds Greatest Hits package. They revamped the double album with the stripes on it, and they included 3 new songs from Van Halen: Learning to See, Up for Breakfast, and It's About Time. And I remember just being so jazzed, and I thought It's About Time at the time. I thought it was great, and thought Up for Breakfast was cool. I was bought in, and Learning to See I thought was really cool too, but then part of it I didn't really like. But I really liked the new material, and I was getting really pumped up about this tour. And I found out that you could do these passes, these I Love All Access passes, and I was like, wow, you know, you can buy these tickets. And I want to say that each ticket for the I Love All Access was less than $400 a piece. I want to say they were like $350 or $300, $275 in that range. And I remember that, you know, I bought 2. I was married at the time, so my ex-wife and I were going to go. I was going to take her and get a babysitter. We flew up to the show. We had plenty of time to prepare for it, because it was a couple months off. And so I bought those tickets, and I want to say I spent less than think I spent less than $1,000 total for flights, hotel, and the passes. We stayed in the worst hotel of my life ever in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So, the day of the show came, and I Love All Access had emailed us the paperwork we needed to get in. So we had to bring our IDs, we had to bring this printout. It was real archaic. And I remember flying into the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania airport, and we had booked a hotel, but I didn't realize, even though from upstate New York, I really didn't give it a lot of thought that there wouldn't be taxi cabs in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I thought there'd be some form of public transportation. Well, we took a cab from Harrisburg Airport to Hershey, which is maybe 35 miles, and that was pretty expensive, that cab fare, and we had got an affordable hotel. We got something like a Motel 6, and let me just tell you, this Motel 6 was awful. I mean, there weren't bed bugs, but the floor of the shower was crooked, and the blankets, there was one sheet, and there was a bedspread that was real, like, brown and just gross. That was like from 1972 or something. It was just really a gross smelling, nasty hotel. But we were only going to be staying there for 2 nights, and we were gone. So we just figured the first day we were there, I want to say we got there on a Friday, and the concert, I want to say, was a Saturday. The show was on June 13th of 2004, so I didn't look up what day of the week that was, but I believe it was a weekend. So we got there the day before. We were going to do Hershey Park and the theme park, and we were going to just check out the chocolate factory. Now, Hershey's where they make all the chocolate, and the place smells like chocolate. When you're in Hershey, Pennsylvania, you can smell chocolate, because there's a big chocolate factory. It's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's a small town based around dairy farms, and they put it in Hershey because they put the chocolate factory there because of all the dairy, and he wanted to have the milk there for his chocolate. So that's what they told us in the factory. And the tour was cool, the park was fun, and that really was the saving grace of the trip. I mean, the concert was the cherry on top of the sundae, but the day before in Hershey, going to the amusement park and riding the rides and doing the chocolate factory tour and stuff was really cool. And the chocolate explosion cake at the park was tremendous. So that was nice. But we had to walk everywhere, and from our hotel to Hershey Park was about 2.5 miles. And we wound up walking to the concert because there were no cabs, and we didn't have any friends there. So we had to walk. Thankfully, the weather was nice, and the show was outdoors. So the day of the show, we had to get there. I think they said get there around 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock. And we walked up to Hershey Park, and they had the outside stadium arena, and there was a fence there. We could hear the band making some noise when we got close. We could hear a little guitar. We could hear a little bit of the drums. Not much going on, but the stage was already set up, and the PA and everything. And when we went through the front gate, they checked our emails, and they gave us a wristband to get in. And it was like a football field, you saw Van Halen it was like looking at Van Halen from the 50-yard line, and we just walked straight through the field, straight up to the front of the stage, and there was the little barricade, and back then the barricade was just a metal gate, and there was maybe this much space between us and the stage, and the stage was probably 5 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall. It wasn't a very tall stage, so we can get up close. Nowadays, concerts have you like 8 feet from the stage, or 12 feet. It's, when you're in these big festivals, right? So we were really close, and I remember, seeing Eddie for the first time. We really didn't see a lot of pictures of Eddie throughout the years because internet was barely, it's a thing, but you didn't get a lot of updates on the internet. Van Halen were very tight-lipped, and of course we had heard rumors of Eddie having cancer, tongue cancer, and there was talk about Eddie getting his hips replaced, and there were some questions about Eddie, and he'd been drinking a lot. The smoking loon stories had surfaced, and of course Eddie's small career in writing music for soft well, not soft porn, but just porn movies. He did a couple of songs like Catherine, and so Eddie had gone kind of off the deep end, man. And it's one reason I don't like Wolfgang guitars, because PV Wolfgangs remind me of the era from Gary up until through the '04 tour, and it's just, to me, it's just a bad omen. And I never, I owned one, and I thought it was pretty decent, but I got rid of it a long time ago, which was kind of stupid. But anyway, I don't like PV Wolfgangs because of that whole era. So we walked up to the stage, and Al was, you could tell he was banging on the drums, and he was checking he had his earphones on. So Al plays to, obviously, they got to play to a click track, and they play to MIDI tracks. So Al had on his headphones, and Al was way up on his drum riser. And if you're looking at the stage, like you're looking at me, Ed, of course, was over here, Mike was over here, and Sammy was nowhere to be seen, right? So it was pretty cool. There was only about 50 of us, maybe 50 or 60 of us, and they treated us really nice. There was probably 2 ladies and 1 man that worked with that group that helped us out. So, and they were super excited for us. They're really smiling and super friendly, and they would check in on us. And pretty much when we got into soundcheck was part of the deal, and they were going to feed us and let us have drinks, and they were going to have raffles. And we got part of the I Love All Access was we were guaranteed a seat in the first 2 rows. We didn't know what seat we'd be in, but we were going to get one of the first 2 rows guaranteed, and we were supposed to be able to go on stage and look at the equipment after sound check, and then we were going to go backstage and see where the band mingles in their dressing rooms and stuff like that. So that was all part of this package, which is actually really nice, and you got a free t-shirt with it included. Nowadays they give you free first access to the merch booth, right? You got to buy everything. and a lot of times they don't give you anything, or they might give you a bologna sandwich or something. So I'll get more to that later. So we were watching soundcheck, and I was kind of dumbfounded because I'd seen Van Halen a few times, but I'd only been at the shows. I never got to see them just in the raw, rough. And I was front row for the Right Here Right Now show, but snuck up to the front after Vince Neil. But it was surreal for me to see him up there, and then they would stop playing, and you could hear Eddie clunking around on his guitar. And it was weird because after seeing Eddie for the first time in a while, he had his hair up in a ponytail. He had like the famous samurai bonsai thing, and he had on these cargo shorts. I believe they were camouflage or green. I think they were camo cargo shorts with some really beat up Van Halen high tops, his red Converse, and he wasn't wearing a shirt to my recollection. He might have been wearing a tank top for part of the sound check. Now this was the second show on the tour, and I intentionally bought tickets for the second show because I knew there was a chance that they may not make it through the end of this tour. And Hershey was not super close, but it was kind of close. And to Nashville, I was in Nashville, it was a pretty easy flight. And I figured, heck, we'll be able to go to the theme park and do all that stuff too, and make a fun trip of it. So, second show of the tour, and I remember seeing Eddie in his bonsai haircut and his green shorts, and he was always talking on a cell phone. He had a cell phone under his ear and his shoulder, and he was playing with his wireless, and he had his Sunburst Wolfgang, and he was walking around the stage, and he was talking, he was noodling and talking, and then he had a bottle of smoking lean wine over on one of his amps on the side, like near the PA equipment. He'd drink some wine, and he'd be on his phone, and sometimes jamming on the songs. He was on the phone, from what I remember, and I just thought, man, what's he got to say? Who's he talking to? What's that important, right? And I yelled out something to Al. I was like, Big Al, and Mikey looked down at me. Mikey was the coolest of all. Surprise, surprise, Mikey was the coolest. Mikey talked to us. He interacted with us. Eddie didn't interact at all. He stayed on the phone, and he was jamming. He was working on jamming and talking on the phone. And Mikey said, Al can't hear you. He's deaf. Plus, he's got his headphones on, but he's so deaf he can't hear. So, just give up. And he just laughed it off. And I said to him, "Where's Sammy at? Where's Sammy?" And he's like, "He's back at the hotel. He's sleeping." And I thought, oh, okay. Well, probably, years later, reading Sammy's book, I don't think Sammy wanted to be around those dudes during soundcheck anyway. But, Mikey was like, "He's back at the hotel. He's sleeping." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And throughout the night, Mikey and Mikey's tech were the nicest guys. And I wound up getting front row tickets, or front row seats. They drew our names out of a hat. They couldn't just play favorites and say, "You're center and you're to the side." So we all got to draw numbers out, and we got our tickets that way after sound check. And I got front row just to the left, which was right in front of Mikey, and which was awesome because Mikey is the coolest guy. And I don't know what I did with them all, but I got so many guitar picks from Mikey, giving me picks and giving my wife picks all night long. And Mike's tech after the show gave us a bunch of picks, and he interacted with us for the whole show. I mean, we were right there in front of him. He was like saying stuff to us between songs and yelling at us in songs. And he'd laugh. He'd look down at us and point because he knew we were part of the package, and we were just rocking out, man, having so much fun. But before the show started, after sound check, they were like, "All right, let's go." I want to say they gave us the Backstage tour first, and they fed us, so I'll say that. It kind of is a blur. It was 20 years ago. It's the 20th anniversary of this tour, actually. So they took us backstage, and they said we couldn't go on the stage. And I was like, what? So it was subject to change, right? So we were supposed to go on stage and be able to look at the gear. Not touch it, not play it, but we were supposed to be able to go on the stage. But they wouldn't let us on the stage. So they're like, "No, you can't go on the stage." So they're like, "Oh, okay. But we'll let you back in the trailer." So they had these trailers behind the stage, and it was pretty uneventful. It was kind of neat, I guess. But we went into the one trailer where the seamstress was. There's an Asian lady who sewed their stage clothes and fixed things for them. And I guess she travels with them or something, but she was back there, and they introduced us to her, one of the I Love All Access ladies, and she was working on a pair of pants or something when we walked back there. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat, And then we walked down this trailer a little bit more, and then they were like, "This is where Al and Eddie hang out. This is their room." And they probably bring these trailers to every show, I would think. And then right across the hallway, the guy goes, there's a guy that was telling us this part. He goes, "Here's where Sammy and Mike warm up." And I said, "Why do they have separate rooms? Why don't they warm up together?" And I was green as a gourd, I thought they were best friends, I was so happy Sammy was back in the band. And he just looked at me like, "Yeah, and I was like, okay. That's interesting. I guess they just don't want to hang out with each other, I was starting to pick up on the vibes, right? So they took us back, and the cool thing about this package was we had free drinks. It was open bar. They let us drink like as much as we want. I'm not a drinker, but we had a couple mixed drinks, and they let us drink, and it was for free, and they fed us food. We had they catered food to us. It was nice catered food. There was actual meals. I can't remember exactly what I ate. I want to say it was some kind of pasta salad and a side dish of something. But it was nice food. And we sat. They had like a little tables and chairs, and we sat over to the side of the stage. We had like our own little campground set up next to the stage outside. Thankfully, it didn't rain. I mean, go figure. In the middle of summer, a sunny night in Pennsylvania is rare, but we had nice weather. It couldn't have been better all weekend, and it would have sucked if it rained. I don't know what they would have done. I mean, we had tents, but boy, it would have been gnarly. So they had raffles every few minutes. They said, "We're gonna have another raffle. Get out your tickets. We're gonna pull numbers out." And they raffled off a drum head that was autographed by Alex, and I didn't win it. I think it was a bass drum head. It was Alex drumhead, and they gave away something else. I remember them telling us, here was our pass. This is what the I Love All Access pass looks like. I've got 2 of these, and that logo right there is that's the logo Alex Van Halen designed. So they told us that Alex actually, drew that, and that was his artistry. which is kind of neat. And then they gave us all a shirt, and it had the same logo on it, right? So there's the Van Halen logoed shirt for this tour, and there was the I Love All Access thing on the back of it. I got 2 of these shirts. So yeah, they gave us the shirt and this pass, and they raffled away some stuff, and there were a lot of people that were, at this point, really tipsy and drunk because, you know, all the free drinks and things like that. And the I Love All Access people were so nice to us. But once the show started, they disappeared. I mean, once the show was on, man, the place filled up, and it was like, all right, y'all are on your own. The I Love All Access thing is done. Enjoy your night. Rock out. One thing I will say, I remember during soundcheck, I forgot to mention this, during soundcheck, Eddie, at the end of soundcheck, I remember somebody gave Eddie a painting. It was a pretty large framed painting, and this man was with his son, and his son was, you know, kind of small. He was probably 8 or 10 or something, and the guy said, Eddie, we've got a gift for you, and they handed the painting up to Eddie, and Eddie was like, he looked kind of shocked, you know, and he took the painting and he was looking at it, and it really, you could tell Eddie was really touched by the gift. And Eddie was like, everybody always wants something from me, and you know, they never give me anything. They always want something from me. And it didn't come off sounding like he was a jerk. It was sad the way, you know, you could tell it came from his heart. And Eddie he starts looking around to give this guy something back, you know, like, I got to give you something. And he gave him an empty bottle of wine. He gave him an empty Smoking Loon bottle. I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool to have Eddie's Smoking Loon bottle. And somebody yelled out to Eddie, you know, how's your hip? How's your hips? Because he had his hip replaced, right? And he's like, it's stronger than yours, man. Mine's titanium. It's going to last forever. And I think Eddie said he had his hip bone in his freezer or something. I want to say he said something like that. And Eddie looked pretty good. I mean, he didn't look super rough, but you could tell he was kind of worn down. I remember seeing Eddie's guitar during soundcheck, and the back of his neck had Sharpie marks on the back of the fretboard. And when you turn around, you could see where he'd marked areas where he would play stuff. And I thought, that's kind of weird that he's like, you know, he has to mark it. And it makes sense to me now, because I've played so many thousands of shows, and a lot of times in the dark, you can't see, if your eyes are bad, you can't see where you're at. And sometimes I'll draw Sharpie marks over my fret dots on the top of some of my frets, some of my guitars that I can't see very well in the dark. And so I can understand that, but during the show I could tell Eddie was, I don't know if it was due to lack of practice or it was due to him being, you know, really into alcohol, but his playing suffered. It was not completely terrible. If we look at the set list for that show was interesting. I mean, they started the show off with Jump. So, I mean, go think about that. You know, the 04 reunion with Sammy, and the first song they come out with is Jump, which is unusual. And then they did Run Around. I remember Eddie being out of tune in Run Around. I remember him being kind of, he had to like tweak something on Run Around. Humans Being was third. I was really jazzed about that. I remember when Humans Being was in the movie Twister, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And when Humans Being came out, no sooner than that came out, Sammy quit the band or was fired or whatever you want to believe. And then, you know, the whole debacle started with the downfall, you know, in my opinion. But Humans Being sounded good. So Eddie played better on the newer material, the newest stuff. Like Humans Being was pretty good, and then, you know, the new songs off the Best of Both Worlds album, Learning to See, Up for Breakfast, It's About Time, they were all good. Eddie didn't mess those up because probably he'd been playing them so much and they were so new. So Up for Breakfast came on after Humans Being. I remember always thinking Up for Breakfast was kind of a rip-off of Why Can't This Be Love, because it's got that kind of sound, that keyboard, but it was cool. I want to say Eddie played his Frankenstein guitar in Up for Breakfast, which was kind of a big thing, because Frankie had been retired for for a while because of the neck breaking or something. And I remember him bringing out his Frankie. Might have been Frankie. It might have been I think it was the original Frankenstein from '84 era, earlier. I think that was on Up for Breakfast. Mikey did the bass solo. Normally I didn't like the bass solos, but we were right in front of Mike, so the bass solo was so interactive, and to see Mike up close, it was totally a cool experience. That they did Somebody Get Me a Doctor in a Pound Cake. It was tough for me to hear songs like Pound Cake and Run Around, because I remember Right Here, Right Now, that tour was so phenomenal, and the band was at their peak, in my opinion, around 95. They were 92 to 95. They were so hot, and they had really fallen off on this '04 tour because Eddie just wasn't on his game, and to hear Pound Cake not at its best was kind of sad. I could kind of start to see the cracks, the chinks in the armor, so to speak, during those songs. It's About Time was after that, which I remember being really solid, and Sammy saying Turn the Clocks Back, and there was a visual of a clock on the backdrop. And then there was a drum solo. Al's always professional. Drum solo blew us all away. Al is tremendous. He's got all the MIDI triggers and all that stuff. His drum solo didn't change a whole lot from, the Balance tour forward. Kind of got a little scaled down over the years, I think. Top of the World was after the drum solo. Unchained. I remember Unchained being a little messy. I remember Eddie would improvise. As the show went on, this is about halfway through the show, as the show went on, Eddie would get worse. You'd think he'd get better, but Eddie would start getting looser and probably drink a little bit more. And about this time of the show, Eddie was pretty sauced. Why Can't This Be Love was next. I remember a lot of the keyboard songs, like Why Can't This Be Love, sounded really nice because they had the big MIDI tracks, and the drums and everything were right there. So anything that had tracks sounded the best on this tour because Eddie had all that supporting stuff underneath him. Then Eagles Fly and Deeper Kind of Love was Sammy's spotlight. He did those acoustically. I want to say, I could be wrong on this, but I want to say Sammy said, I got to cover up my Cabo tattoo. Eddie doesn't like it when I show my Cabo tattoo. I want to say he said that, and he was pulling his shirt down. Or Eddie might have even walked out and messed with his shirt a little bit, and Sammy was kind of like, what's up, dude? Learning to See was after that. I was never a huge fan of Learning to See. I always thought that was a cool intro, and Eddie's crutch was his Sustainiac pickup around the Sharon era, and then through the new material on Best of Both Worlds, and through you hear it a lot on Respect the Wind, and it's in Humans Being. There was an era there where Eddie was really in love with that Sustainiac pickup, and it got to the point where I knew he was going to flip it on and just start bending notes because I felt like that was his crutch. And to this day, I can't stand it when I hear Eddie and the Sustainiac. I remember him wearing it out on the VH3 tour, and which was a great tour. Bad album in my opinion, but a good tour. So Learning to See, then Best of Both Worlds. Anything early Hagar era Van Halen, that wasn't a keyboard song was sort of a letdown because it just didn't relive what I'd seen so many times before. The guitar solo was after Best of Both Worlds, and I remember Eddie. I thought he was improvising a lot more. I didn't realize, the state he was in at that point and how messed up he really was. So it wasn't the greatest Eruption, obviously. I've heard worse on this tour, some that's like, ooh, what's he doing? But I remember he struggled with Eruption a little bit, finding it on the keyboard, the fretboard. I was like, Eddie, look at your marks, look at the Sharpie marks. But he was, all in all, Eruption was acceptable, but it wasn't the same. Then they did Dreams. The track carried Dreams. It's a complicated song. Eddie did get the solo right in Dreams. I was a little bit worried about that high part, but he nailed Dreams pretty good. Ain't Talking About Love, Right Now. Ended the show. They came back, they did 2 encores. They did You Really Got Me in Panama for Encore 1, which was kind of interesting because they started the song with a Roth song, and then they ended with a couple Roth songs on Encore 1, and then they ended the show with When It's Love. And I always thought When It's Love was a weird closer, and I saw the Sammy Hagar tour a month or so ago in Nashville, and they ended with When It's Love, and it reminded me of the 04 tour when they ended with When It's Love. And it was just, to me, that was weird that both of those tours ended with When It's Love. But Van Halen sounded better on When It's Love, even in Eddie's state, than I felt, the Sammy Hagar reunion, or the Sammy Hagar concert I just recently saw. So When It's Love was the big ending, and they did the big thing at the end, Mikey and Sammy, and Sent Us Away Happy. I wound up going to see that show in Louisville, and I saw it in Cincinnati. And I want to say the Louisville show was fun. It was a little sloppy. Louisville was kind of sloppy. But Cincinnati was on point. I remember they had just gotten back from vacation in like Puerto Rico or someplace in Cincinnati. Eddie had he put 5150 stickers on his stomach, so when he peeled them off, he was real suntan, but he had white 5150 on his six-pack on his stomach, and that was kind of cool. But I remember both of those shows, Louisville and Cincinnati, were on that tour, and I thought Cincinnati was really, really good. Louisville was decent, and Hershey was fun just because the I Love All Access. For the money we spent, we were under $1,000, and that's including airfare and hotel and those tickets. I want to say, well, it was probably right around 1,000. I think it was $400 a piece for those tickets, somewhere like that. And then we got a really good deal on airfare, and our hotel room was only like $39 a night. It was terrible. After the show, we were going to have to walk 2.5 miles back to our hotel, and we had made friends with a couple at the show, and they happened to see us leaving and walking down this dirt road out of Hershey Park, and I was like, I'm so tired because we spent all day. We were all day at this event, and they drove by us and said, hey, you want to ride? We're like, yeah. So we got on they had a truck, and we got on the back of their tailgate, and they drove us down and dropped us off at our hotel. And we wound up getting a cab back to the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania airport the next day and flew home, and I'll never forget that. So that was my I Love All Access concert, seeing Van Halen on the reunion tour in 04. Great prices, really good value. There was a couple things we didn't get to go on stage and see their equipment, which was kind of a bummer, but totally different nowadays, even just 20 years. I mean, 20 years is a long time, but how times have changed in 20 years. So hope you like this kind of content. This was a little bit different video for me today. Please consider subscribing, comment below, and as always, have a great day. Peace out.